I never meant to touch her. Not with my hands, not with my eyes. But I did. Once. In the dark. Behind the chapel doors. And everything I swore to became ash. They still kneel by the altar, praying for salvation. They don't know what I buried beneath the chapel floor. Not her body, not a sin, a choice. I kissed her knowing it would damn me. She kissed me like she didn't care. And now, I'm still speaking her name in the silence where God used to be. I was 17 when they shaved my head and gave me a name that wasn't mine. Brother Ansel, servant of silence, son of nothing. I grew up in the stone belly of St. Corvinus Abbey, tucked high in the cliffs where the sea broke like thunder. I've never known a mother's touch or a drunken laugh in a tavern, only the cold kiss of holy water and the ache that settles in your bones when prayers become your only voice. They said I was chosen. I said nothing and took the vow. Our lives were the shape of bells. Rise, chant, kneel, sleep. I copied scripture until my fingers bled ink. I fasted. I kissed no one. I imagined less. Then she arrived. She wasn't meant for us, just passing through with the steward's family, a visiting shadow. I saw her only once at first, through the stained glass above the pulpit. She tilted her head toward the light and smiled. Not at me, not at anything, just smiling, as if joy still lived somewhere in the world. I tried to look away. I didn't succeed. Each day, I told myself it was nothing, just a breath, a moment, a flicker. But then came the second glance. Then, the day she lingered by the herb garden. Then, the soft hello she whispered through the iron bars meant to keep our worlds apart. A woman I could not name, in a place I could never leave. And I suddenly remembered I had a heart. The first time I touched her, it was only a slip of paper. I tucked it into her psalter when no one was watching, a crushed corner of parchment between worn pages of St. Matthew. All it said was, "Do you ever lie awake and long for what can't be named?" She never looked over, but she smiled that evening during prayers, and that smile nearly undid me. Each morning, I knelt. Each night, I lied. I told God I belonged to Him, but every part of me had already wandered, all the way to her. The second note came folded inside a sprig of dried lavender. Yes. We grew reckless in shadows, passing glances, flinching when our robes brushed in corridors. I memorized the sound of her footsteps, even in a room of echoing hymnals. "Why did you write it?" she whispered once, behind the kitchen gates. "Because I couldn't bring myself to speak it," I said. She looked at me for a long time. "Say it now." I shook my head. "If I speak it aloud, I won't stop." When the days grew longer, she would slip into the garden at dusk, the far wall where the monks rarely went, where the rosemary swallowed sound and the vines grew wild over the blessed statues. I met her there. At first, we just sat, never touching, just breathing too close. Once, her head tipped over in sleep, brushed against my shoulder. I didn't move for an hour. "Do you think this is wrong?" she asked me just before bell call. My throat burned. "Yes, it has to be." She looked down, voice trembling. "Then why does it feel like I'm finally alive?" Something in me cracked. The night rain broke through the chapel roof. The others ran for buckets. I followed her instead, down the west corridor, past the cloisters, into the dusty old vestry where no one dared go. We were soaked, cold. Her cloak clung to her skin, She turned to me and said, "Tell me again that this is wrong." My hands were shaking. "It is." She leaned in. "Then prove it. Walk away." I didn't. I kissed her like I'd never speak again. God forgive me. I didn't even feel the shame, only the warmth of her lips and the cruel joy of surrender. It got worse after that, or maybe better. We drank each other like stolen wine. A smile in the chapel made my stomach seize. A graze of her fingers beneath the table stole my breath. I watched the back of her neck during service and dreamed of tracing every inch of it by candlelight. I forgot what silence was supposed to feel like. I knew only the sound of her voice, soft, taunting, sacred in its own blasphemous way. "You look at me like you're praying," she whispered once. "I am," I said, "but not to anyone listening." The brothers began to notice. Whispers curled like incense after morning chants. Brother Cadwin cornered me in the scriptorium. "You've no fire left in you. Your eyes are always elsewhere." He was right. My fire had a heartbeat and a mouth that said my name like forgiveness. Toward the end, we stopped pretending to be careful. That final night, she left a candle burning behind the chapel, our signal. Flame behind stained glass. Our last meeting. I nearly didn't go, but I did. And when I stepped inside, the flame was gone. And so was she. The chapel was empty. Her candle was gone, but the smell of wax lingered. So did her shawl, draped over the pew like a question no one wanted to answer. I waited. I prayed. And then I heard it. Voices. Too many. Too close. One of them said her name. I froze until the doors crashed open behind me. Torches. The abbot's fury. Cold hands gripping my robe. "Down on your knees, Brother Ansel." I didn't move. "She is under questioning," he spat. "Accused of tempting a man of God from his oath. Tempting. As if love were a spell she cast. As if I hadn't run to her. Crawled." "She confessed to nothing," another monk rasped. "She wouldn't say your name." "She protected me, even when I wasn't worth protecting." The abbot leaned in close. "Why did she come to you behind God's altar if not for sin?" I opened my mouth, ready to lie, to save myself. But I was tired of lying. "She came because I begged her to," I said. It was quiet. You could hear the rain hitting the stained glass. "I loved her," I whispered. Someone struck me. My lips split. Blood hit the stone floor where I used to pray. The abbot's voice trembled with rage. "You will be stripped of your robe. Your tongue will bear the mark of blasphemy." "And her?" I asked. He didn't answer. Before dawn, they brought me back to the chapel. I was made to spit on my vows, burn them on the altar. I did, with shaking hands. Not because I stopped believing in God, but because I loved her more than I feared hell. They dragged me from the abbey barefoot, my robe torn, my name stripped. I wandered for months before I found the tree. It stood just beyond the cliffs, leaning toward the sea, brittle, half dead, clinging to life the way I was. Its bark was carved all over from long ago. Initials, prayers, names. Mine were not there, but hers were. Just one word, faint, almost gone. Ansel. I fell to my knees. She had been here. It was a mercy and a curse. To know she lived long enough to carve it, but not long enough to wait. Or maybe she waited, and I was just too late. I couldn't go back to the abbey. Even now, I still see the stained glass when I close my eyes, the sharp edge of the pew biting into my knees. the candlelit silence before I kissed her, the place where God should have spoken before I chose desire. Sometimes I wonder if I traded heaven for 5 stolen nights. If hell is silence, then I've already arrived. I keep her shawl folded beneath my satchel. I light 1 candle for her every year, always in secret. I do not speak her name aloud, but I mouth it in the dark. And that is my new prayer. They say a monk, once fallen, is dead to his faith. And maybe that's true. Maybe I'm a ghost now. But the world is full of ghosts, hearts that beat for someone they were told they could never touch. I write letters I never send, words only she should read. I'd do it all again, even knowing how it ends. Even if all I got was her breath against my skin and the sound of her voice in the dark. Even if it meant losing everything else. Because for one moment, I knew what it was to be alive. She was never canonized, never mourned in public. There was no vigil, no statue. But I remember her like a saint. Not because she was holy, but because she was human. And love, in its purest form, always bleeds.